This is the Alpha Lift Street Fighter Alpha 3 podcast with your hosts, Quest and Lukefitz.
It's showtime!
Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Alpha Libs podcast. I'm Luke and I'm joined as always by Quest. And today we welcome to the show a new school super turbo killer, KillerMiller. Also known as Tanya, KillerMiller is a dedicated Honda player, tournament organizer, sword wielder, and cornerstone of the SoCal super turbo scene. So without further ado, over to you, Quest, to kick off the show.
Thanks, Luke, and thank you for that interesting introduction. How are you today, KillerMiller?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Oh, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. Thank you both for having me.
No worries.
My first question today is, how did you get into competitive Street Fighter?
Ooh, very good question. Well, already I'm talking about El Trouble. That didn't take long. Basically, I was one of those girlfriends who saw him, playing his friends and trying to join, and I didn't do so well. And I look back on it now, and it was just pure salt. But I pretty much thought that fighting games in general was just mashing buttons at the right time. So I was one of those girlfriends who said, this is a waste of your time, no skill, exactly. And then this smart mofo, who is my boyfriend, gets me invested in. So like one summer, sadly, I got laid off from my job, and he goes, it's a great time to start learning fighting games is because you're at your lowest point, and so it'll build back your confidence. And he got me right, and he got me really interested more in like the more of the social side of fighting games, not necessarily the fighting games, right in the intro. So the first thing exactly, because I was not too much of a gamer. I mean, I had dipped my toes in it, but I wasn't like a full hardcore gamer in any sense. So he got me watching Cross Counter with Gutex and Mike Ross.
Yep, that's the entry point for a lot of people, I think. Right?
A good portion of the FGC, I would say. And so smart mofo that El Trouble is.
Yep, he planned it out.
Yeah, he got me invested in, week after week, just watching, their show was exhilarating. It was so much fun to watch Mike Ross, especially with his Honda and Street Fighter 4, and then that documentary that came out, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
You mentioned you like. Sorry, continue.
Go for it.
You mentioned you like the social aspect of it. From talking to other women in the FGC, do you feel that's also true for them, or is this just something specific to you?
I think that could be true of any spectator that hasn't really dipped their toes in fighting games. You see kids, you see females, males, the whole spectrum of people who are like, maybe that's not my cup of tea, but I do like watching it. I do like knowing about these storylines, like, oh, I didn't know so-and-so Daigo has been a beast all these years. I don't know, that, this is an upset this match. I had no clue who Justin Wong is, so and so forth. So I think that could be said for a lot of people just kind of coming into the scene. As a tournament organizer, you get a lot of people where it's their like first tournament ever, and so you're like, hey, let me show you how awesome it can be, even if you're not a pro player or even if you're not playing at that level.
From my understanding, I could be wrong, but is Cross Counter TV no longer going at the moment? It's ended, or is it still going?
They're not doing the show like the Adventures of Gutex and Mike Ross that they're kind of famous for. But it's still kind of going to a certain extent.
Well, my question was going to be, for people that want to get into it now, is there something equivalent of that's bigger or that's going on at the moment?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say it would be Alex Myers, and Vicious's new show. I believe it's called Run It Back. I would say probably that's the newest show that gets new players into it. They're really good engagement. They're really fun. And of course, those are two of my homies. But I've always had fun with them in tournaments, and they bring that energy to the show. So I would say Myers and Vicious.
Is that a Street Fighter 5 focused kind of show?
I believe it's a Street Fighter 5 focused kind of show. But who knows? Maybe they'll go into other games in the future. But so far Street Fighter 5 only.
So how did you make that transition from kind of interested in fighting games to a certain extent to becoming like a strong tournament player? Like how did that happen?
So the last year that Evo was free, I want to say that was 2011. Me and El Trouble just happened to be in Las Vegas that same weekend because my family usually takes trips out there.
Mhm.
And here in Southern California, it's only like a 4 hours drive, so it's not too bad. And we went to our first ever Evo just as spectators, both him and I, and we've kind of fell in love. That energy of everything that had to do with it. And of course, we were like, oh, we'll only go for a couple hours, and we ended up like staying 2 full days there on the Friday and Sunday, and we couldn't wait to go back. And I remember at the end of that Evo, we were walking around kind of the back area, and we see this guy kind of playing out of a post office box. And
Fighting out of a post office box.
fighting out of a post office, I know, right? And it's basically a super gun or an arcade board in a post office box.
Yeah, right.
And he's playing Super Turbo, and the guy who's playing it is DGV, who's a really well-known SoCal player. Yeah. And we didn't know, of course, this info at the time. We were like, what are they playing out of? And El Treble was just surprised that people were still playing Super Turbo. So, El Treble's talking to him while I'm walking around and taking everything in. And DGV tells him, oh, you guys are from SoCal. You guys should go to Super Arcade. There's this guy called Muffin Man who runs these ST tournaments. So lo and behold, that transitioned us to actually going to the arcade and going to Wednesday night fights. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I started competing in Street Fighter 4 because, I saw Mike Ross do it.
Yeah, so you played Honda in Street Fighter 4 as well?
I started with Ibuki, but then she was too tough because as a first-time fighting game player, that's probably...
a bit of an execution barrier.
Right, just a little bit with my sad little stick. And so then I changed to Blanca and eventually went to Honda. Yeah. So, but it was still fun, like learning their neutral game and learning Street Fighter 4 in general. Mm-hmm. And so I think what really pushed me a lot harder was kind of the competition aspect of Wednesday Night Fights, and the fact that El Treble watched my Street Fighter 4 gameplay and was like, "Hey, I love you, but your fundamentals suck." So you should. I'm telling you this
because I love you.
Yeah. So you should probably play ST and get your fundamentals down, and then you'll be a lot better at 4. That's smart, man.
Yeah. Is that true? Do you reckon playing Super Turbo helps your Street Fighter 4 and 5 gameplay?
For sure, for 4. 5 is a little different because you can't use your reactions, because if you do, you'll get crush countered.
There's no neutral.
Yeah, the neutral's very different. So in some cases, yes. In some cases, no for 5. But in 4, for sure. It was definitely beneficial. I'd say I was pretty mid-tier at Wednesday Night Fights. I would get really close to the end of the bracket, and I think I got top 8 only once, but I was really proud of those achievements.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, and this is Honda after AE, so even worse Honda.
Yeah. You're bottom of the tier, kind of.
Playing like Valle at Wednesday Night Fights. Oh, that Shoto matchup I still remember.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you mentioned Wednesday Night Fights and making top 8. Were there any other memories that stood out to you?
Oh, lots of memories. There used to be, I'm going to forget his name because it's been so long, but there was this amazing other Honda player who had like the best hands in the business. I think it was Arrow. He was just a treat to watch. I remember just going to tournaments and having fun with everyone. Probably the biggest memory I had was not with Street Fighter 4, but actually probably with ST at Tournament of Legends.
Yeah, I think I know where this is going.
That was a blast. I was definitely, if you go back to the footage, if you hear someone like screaming and hollering in the background, it's me. Because I had never seen like that high level of Street Fighter 2 before until Kusamundo came in, and watching him just battle it out against DGV and making that Shoto matchup look so easy, I was over the moon. So that's probably my biggest memory, was actually Tournament of Legends. Sadly, not as much as Street Fighter 4. There's good memories from that too, but
Yeah,
the ST sticks out a
ST.
little bit more.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good moment to talk about probably one of your most famous videos on YouTube, which is you playing against Quismundo in the Honda mirror match, and getting a 3-0 victory. Talk us through that? Like, what were you confident going in, or what's the story behind that?
The story was I was so can I curse on this, by the way?
Yeah, sure.
I was so goddamn tired because I had gotten all of the signatures for the Tournament of Legends 3 posters.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had been organizing that and TOing a little bit for them. So I was just like in TO mode. And I don't know if you guys have ever played when you've also been a TO, but you're just
no, I haven't had that experience, but I can imagine, you've got so many other things on your mind.
Mm-hmm. So going into it, I was just like, F it. I'm going to just go all out. I'm going to give them my all. Who cares? Because I was just mentally exhausted from helping out.
Wow.
So it's funny because I think it helped the most because I left my mind the most blank. And I think in a Honda mirror match.
That's what you need. Brain fully disengaged.
Exactly, because like most Honda mirror matches, we're supposed to stay in the corner for 90 seconds, and just wait it out. But of course, me and Kusumoto were just gonna go in.
Yeah, that was a crazy tempo.
Yeah, maybe not the smartest decision, but it worked at the time.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about the Honda mirror match? Like, I've seen in other places you say that it's a really like 50-50 kind of match, and like what it seems, like an absolute slugfest. Is just kind of hands everywhere, like butt slams everywhere. I don't know. What do you think about that match?
So I call it the rock, paper, scissors trigonometry match.
Okay. Yep.
It's all about spacing and where you're at. And then based on, if you have the reactions, then you can do certain things at certain spacings. But
yeah, I saw you punishing his fierce headbutt with a jab headbutt a couple of times, which is crazy. Like the reactions to do that.
But that only works at like full screen or 3/4 of the screen. Like,
okay,
I don't think I have the reactions like point blank.
Yeah, sure.
So if he, I think if I had lost like any game, he would have caught up and adapted really quickly to noticing that there's breaks in every defense. So I think the problem we both did, and it just worked out in my favor, is like I said, we both went offensive in the beginning. So by the time, and if you look at every round, I barely squeak by every round.
Yeah, well, that's what Super Turbo is like, I suppose. It's a lot of close games.
Mm-hmm.
So much damage.
Yeah, and so I was in a sense lucky to come across that, because I think if, again, like I said, if we went on any longer, him being a master at Honda would have figured out the cracks in my armor and would have figured it out a lot quicker. It's just, you could tell at the first game he was trying to test to see if I knew certain things, and I did. And then the second game, he was like, okay, I'm going to go balls to the wall.
Yeah,
but then so did I.
Yeah, okay. He's like, man, who is this? KillerMiller is crazy. Yeah. That's awesome.
So it like I said, it was rock, paper, scissors at certain spacing in the match. Like, I still, it's not, to me, it's not like a perfect, like the better player wins that mirror match, in my opinion. Like Ryu, Guile, like I can name a couple more ST characters where it's a true feat of skill. No offense to my character, but like no.
What are those rock, paper, scissors games like? Whether like going for Ochio or going for hands or whatever, like what are those moments where you have to guess basically?
So when you go for hands, you can technically stop it again if you're at the right spacing. And then I was lucky enough where when he did a butt slam, I also did a option select, which worked out in my favor and stopped his like momentum.
Yep.
So and then the other thing too is like when you the problem with Ochio is that it's is that you can also do like butt slam in that matchup beats a lot of things, so you have to have headbutt at the ready too.
Yep. Okay.
So again, it's like, okay, butt slam is like rock; it beats most things.
Yep. Well, rock doesn't really beat most things.
True.
Yeah, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
But like, so as soon as, how do I put this? Like, you have a counter for everything, so it's just about baiting the other person to do exactly what you want and then punishing it. So it's really hard to open up the other person if you're being defensive, or it's really hard just to like, once you have the health lead, to hold on to it. I mean, it's, or I shouldn't have said that. What I guess I should have said is like, once you have the health lead, it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah,
you know,
just settle it out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, I just, I like, I know I'm proud of that moment that I beat my sensei, but at the same time, it's not, I don't hold it like too high of an achievement because it's Honda. Because at certain spacing, there was only so much he could do, and there's only so much I could do.
Yep.
And I just happened to capitalize on that, and like, it proved like I got that knowledge handed back to me in Europe because one of their best Honda players beat me in the mirror match, and I was like, oh, I guess.
Okay.
So like, he figured out really quickly what my holes in my defense were. So as soon as you figure that out, it just goes downhill. Yeah. So, like I said, it's the mirror match for Honda is not, in my mind, a telltale sign of like the Honda skill level.
What matchup for you for Honda is the real test of skill? Like when you see Kusumono play, like that's the standard.
Oh, DJ, in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Okay, that's a tough match, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the toughest. DJ has an answer for everything. So you have to be really creative on getting in and getting your health lead. Like there's, and you have to walk up block to save your life. There's, there's like 4 different options for when you finally do get in that DJ can stop you. And not to mention just his elbows alone can shut down can shut down like most Honda players. I think also I probably give the most props to it because, like you said, it's a really tough matchup. But when I traveled to Japan, and we played a bunch of sets amongst all the Japanese, I won. I won some games against all the characters, but I never won a single game the entire trip against DJ.
Yeah, well, okay.
When you were there, did you verse Fujimon?
Yes. Oh my gosh, he's so good. He made me go, do fireballs come out 2 at a time? He made me think that for a second.
How did he compare to Afro Legends?
Afro Legends is really good in my mind to the adaptability and to his neutral game, whereas I feel Fujimon was just like a brick wall of defense, and I never got to the neutral game.
Yeah, okay. I know the feeling.
Whereas, don't get me wrong, Afro's amazing. He's really good, but sometimes his zoning isn't like 100% on it because he just wants to get in and then neutral, just beat you without a fireball. But Fujimon was just a defense powerhouse, and I struggled so hard just to even get close to him. I think he like zoned me out the entire set we ran, and I couldn't get in.
Wow, that's amazing. What do you feel about the difference between Japanese Super Turbo players and Americans? Like, is it just player by player, or can you see a kind of difference in style overall between the two?
Oh yeah, that's the cool thing about traveling for Street Fighter is every region has their own style. Like we were lucky enough this last trip to go to multiple places in Japan. So like Tokyo is a little bit different from Nagoya, which is a little bit different from Tochigi, which is a little bit different from Osaka. So it's really cool to see like all the different play styles in Japan and outside of Japan, really. I guess my comments on the Japanese players that you really see the difference between Japan and the rest of the world is when you play them, you realize, oh my gosh, no wonder everyone's been playing every single day after work for these many years, because you realize that the skill level is so much greater than yours. So like when you go to Japan, you feel like a beginner all over again, and you feel like you're back in like the DBZ chamber of
Yeah. Okay.
getting better. Like it's crazy. Like I thought I was a pretty good intermediate player here in the States, and then
Yeah,
I went
sure.
to Japan, and I was like, I know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
They just play it at another level, you know. And it's what they'll do is just throw basics at you and go, okay, I'm gonna bring the basics to the highest possible level. Can you handle this? No? Okay. I'm gonna keep hammering at this this crux in your defense until you figure that out and adapt. It's tremendous for sure.
Yep. So going back to when you picked Honda, why did you pick to main him?
In ST or in Street Fighter 4?
I'll say ST. Yeah.
So I was with Blanca first in ST. Because you know, the Komoda, watching that red pipe video, right? Like everyone who watched
red bite.
Everyone who watches that video goes, I can do that.
Yeah, that's actually what made me want to play Blanca. That's crazy.
Right?
He's just he has mind games. Like he somehow he just like tricks people into just standing there doing nothing. It's crazy.
Right? And he makes Blanca look so easy, which I think is a really great skill to show if you're at a high level. And you're like, yeah, I can pick that up. And then once you do, you're like, how did he train people to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So I was doing okay with Blanca in the weekly Wednesday night fights at ST, and I was I would get some, you know, matches in or whatnot, but I was really struggling to want to play my match, you know. And as you guys know, like Blanca is pretty low tier in ST, so it takes a great skilled player to do well with him. You know, look at Fromo, look at Komoda, and so, you know, El Trouble, again, smart man, goes, hey, I noticed you're struggling with Blanca and you want to be more offensive and you want to do more things. What about, you know, trying Honda like Mike Ross? You know, maybe you'll also like him in SC. Okay. And sure enough, after like 3 to 4 months getting those hands down, that took forever.
I was going to ask about that after, but go on.
Sometimes I still drop them. He was such a breath of fresh air because, as you guys know, like I always count Honda and Chun. You know, once you learn how to play those characters, you know, those characters do really well in the beginning. But once you become like at the intermediate level, then you start to realize how you can close them out really fast. So as a new player, it's really fun to start with those two characters because you're like, I'm winning, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a much steeper incline.
You beat a beginner Dalsim player if you're a beginner Honda player.
Exactly. You'll rage much less as a Honda player versus Dalsim. So that really helped my confidence because I think I had been going 0-2 for like 2 years, and so you know, finally getting like 1 and 2s and 2 and 2s with Honda finally started helping a lot more. So even though Honda is a steeper incline when you start, it starts to bottom out when you get to like intermediate, and then that's when Dalsim skyrockets up.
Okay.
But I had a really good we had a really good group of players at Wednesday Night Fights at that time. We had, I don't know if you guys are aware of, but like Dangerous Paper Cut, like I said before, DGV, we had Muffin Man, Afro Legends.
You had Tomo, you had Silent Scope, I remember.
Well, Tomo and Silent Scope were a little bit later. They were at the Wednesday Night Fights, I want to say, starting in like 2016.
Yeah.
So a little bit before that, there was kind of like the older crew of Wednesday Night Fights. Just because Super Arcade, there's 2 versions of it. There's one in Azusa, and then there was one later in I forget the city, but in a different part. Okay. Right. So this was the older Super Arcade, and so we had, you know, locals of at least 20 guys and girls, and we would just play every single weekend, you know, and sometimes Saturdays as well. So around the tournament of 1 and 2 days, Tournament of Legends days. And that climb to try to beat some of your peers. That was so much fun, yet exhilarating, yet annoying, yet the whole roller coaster of competition, you know. Oh, and Shoto's all day as well. Lots of great players. So that was.
Do you reckon that leveled you up really quickly playing against those strong players?
Yeah, I think it leveled us as noobs really, really quickly because, we were going 0-2 for so long because they were just that good.
Yeah.
When you play people who are at Afro Legends level, every single week, you can't help but get a little bit better.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who's
Are there
your
any,
biggest... sorry, you go, Quest.
Sorry, are there any upcoming ST players in particular that you view as having a lot of potential that we should look out for?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Talent scout.
Ooh. Okay, can I pick two?
Yeah.
All right, so the first one I would say is Frank, aka Punches, here from SoCal.
Okay.
He's a Ryu player, and he's part of the Handsome Boys.
The Handsome Boys.
The Handsome Boys, and
What
all
is
three
that?
of them are good players. Don't get me wrong, but Frank or Punches has really kind of stepped out a little bit more, and he's a Ryu player, and he's definitely getting I'm seeing DGB moments. I'm seeing adaptability. I'm seeing a lot of fun and a lot of really cool movesets he's bringing out. And every time we play, it gets closer and closer and closer and goes, oh, shiza, he's going to beat me at one of these points. Yeah. So shout outs to Frank, for sure, or Punches, I should say.
Cool.
Of the Handsome Boys. Yeah, no, he's... So I talked earlier about how we had a good group of people. Sadly, a lot of them retired or had to become family men or family women, and adult a little bit more. So we kind of have this new group, like you mentioned, Silent Scope and Tomo, and a couple others. And Punches also came out with that group, and he's also getting better. It seems like every week, and he's got a dedicated group that he gets better and better with. So I say look out for Punches in the next couple of years.
Interesting.
From SoCal.
Did you have a second person? I think you mentioned you had two.
I did have a second person, and I'm having a mind blank, and I'm trying to stall for time.
While you think about that, I want to go back to what you said before about getting your hands going with Honda. How do you do that? I'm amazed at how quickly you get Fierce hands to come out consistently. What was your training regime for that? What's any secret techniques or anything?
So I don't know if the video is still out there on YouTube, but in Tournament of Legends 1, a bunch of us took video cam footage of Kusamundo's hands while he was playing Honda.
The secret technique.
And basically I just copied that till I got the rhythm down.
Wow.
And so it's probably the hardest version one to do, in my opinion. Since then, I've learned the double tap like you do in FPS shooters, and there's even a rolling skill one. I learned from another Japanese player when I went.
Okay.
That one's tricky because he just... So the crazy thing about him was he would just roll his fingers on one button, and I'm like, how do you do that? Your fingers are bigger than mine.
Okay, so you just went da-da-da, just 4 fingers all on one button.
Mm-hmm. And he did it quick enough that it would come out as 100-hand slap. So we were with Damdai at the time, and Damdai was getting beaten by him, and we were like, what is going on?
Okay, so very strong player.
Mm-hmm. So that was impressive. So there's other techniques to get Honda's 100-hand slap down, but
you piano, do you, on multiple buttons?
Really, I should be doing that because it would be easier. But
No, I want to know what you do because you obviously get it out consistently.
So I just do the double tap method, where you just basically you hold you do jab and fierce at the same time, assuming you're doing 100 hands, the fierce one.
Yep.
And then so in case, as you guys know, in case the fierce messes up, you'll get jab instead. And then you just press the fierce 3 more times, but I do it in such a way that I don't even remember how many it takes. I just do it as a timing, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da. So it's more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's much more. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like music based.
Yeah.
Rather
just
than
rhythm. Yeah.
more rhythm based. So I can tell just based on my rhythm if I've gone too long or too short or whatnot. But like I said, it's not the probably most optimized way of doing hunter handslap, but it works for me.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's what Kusamundo does if his hands aren't bothering him, and then if not, he does the piano method.
Okay, so he has some hand issues.
Oh yeah, you get older and you have to stretch and all those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's life as a professional athlete, I suppose. E-athlete.
Well, that's just getting old. Like,
Yeah, okay.
Like you get out of bed and you gotta stretch now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, props to being a pro athlete and all, but you just gotta stretch when you're older.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it down to being a pro athlete. That's my excuse. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So did you think of the second person?
I did, but I'm trying to think of her gamer tag rather than her real name.
Yeah, fair enough.
But how about this? I'll describe her instead. So she's an amazing player from Texas out of the Free Play Arcade group. I don't know if you guys are aware of them. Yeah. And she's amazing. And she's only like 14.
Wow. Okay.
So like
or playing like newer Street Fighter games.
She's mostly into Super Turbo because the Free Play Arcade group actually does Super Turbo
kids,
tournaments.
Right?
Kids. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that one
awesome.
before. They had Sonic Matt versus yeah.
And Sonic Matt is definitely another great kid to look out for too, and he's young as well. And he was watching when we were at Free Play Arcade for our tournament series. I want to say last year, he was just watching avidly. Everything he could do to get better, and he's definitely another great kid to look out for in the future.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna change my answer to all the kids in the kids tournament at Free Play Arcade.
If you're playing in tournaments when you're like 12 or 14 or something, like you're gonna be pretty good in 10 years time.
Yeah, I believe Chris Delps runs that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's really good that he's doing this. That's like the next generation of people to keep the game alive. So I think everyone should be watching that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's fostering it. He's fostering like a love at such a young age, and like, everyone knows that once you start getting competitive, whether it's a video game or whether it's in sports, it just builds a fire within you, and you try to chase that forever as long as you can.
Yeah.
What is it about ST that you like in particular compared to other Street Fighters?
I think what I like about it the most is if I have someone next to me and they just sat down at ST for their first time, I can show them how to be like a decent player within 30 minutes. Or I could even show them I could show them a really cool trick like in our first set, and they'll kind of fall in love with the game. So I think that's what I love about ST the most out of all the fighting games is how easy it is to teach someone. I struggle in Street Fighter V trying to teach newbies because then I have to teach them frame data, and no one wants to go to learn math.
Yeah, exactly.
So ST is really, really, really easy, quick dive into it. And that's why it was so popular back in the 90s. People you could just be a masher and do decent. And you'd still have fun. So, and I think that's why these kids at the kids tournament too have so much fun is because you may not know everything, but maybe instinct will drive you certain routes.
Yep. So who would you start with if you're trying to just say that the situation, someone who's never played Super Turbo sits down for half an hour, what character do you normally start with, or what would you try and teach somebody?
So I usually just tell whoever I'm playing, like, pick whoever looks cool to you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Whoever you gravitate to. And then from there, teach them something cheap. So one of the first things I teach them, is tick throws. Yeah, that's the first thing you can learn for them to get really upset by.
Yeah.
So you may not necessarily tick throw them, but you show how to tick throw you. And then once they see you mashing, trying to get out, they're like, "Oh, I've done something so tough." They have to work really hard to get out of this. And then from there, maybe you show them like sweeps or an anti-air. You can, or depending on the character you pick, you can show them a special move. Our nieces and nephews.
Option select.
360
loops.
And that's the thing
maybe
is
that's not quite.
Yeah, on the first day.
Yeah.
It depends on the student. Sometimes they can get really quick. But you guys are absolutely right. Like, you just build and build and build until you have this whole repertoire of knowledge.
Yeah.
My niece and nephew came over the other day, and we taught them tick throws. Didn't even get to special moves, and just one was Chun and the other was Dalsum, and we just showed them certain things, and they were like, "Oh, wow!"
Yeah. We don't need any more tick throw Chun-Li players in the world. Can we
Oh,
not?
no.
Can we not do that? Let's throw that does like 50% damage.
Whoops! I created another monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We have some questions from the listeners.
Oh.
Our first question is from Salty. He's an Australian player. His question
Love
is,
the name.
yeah. Well, his question actually is, how do you and El Trouble deal with Salt, especially since the matchup is really tough?
Oh man, Salt. I feel your salt all the time. I'm probably, of the two of us, he's probably the more mature one, and I'm the one that deals with Salt the worst.
Yeah, right.
As I've gotten older, you just have to learn, anger management techniques like breathing.
It's always a good start.
I even have like this damn it doll where you you bash it against it to feel better. Yeah, like I can't tell you the times I've been so salty, but in some of those really crazy moments, I've used it, I've internalized it, and then used it in some of my like really coolest matchups or coolest moments that I did well in.
Yeah.
So yeah, so once you learn how to harness it, that's really cool. But then the next evolution after that is learning how to harness that focus without getting angry. So
Okay, yeah. Wow, that's some yoga flame type stuff right there.
But can I just say, like, the salt you have with playing your significant other, especially like in grand finals, compares to nothing else. Like,
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I mean, intense.
I probably have high cholesterol due to that alone.
Yeah.
Like, there's
What's
something.
your tournament record against El Trouble? Do you know?
Oh, he's sadly won more than I, but that's because he trained me. He knew Street Fighter longer than I, and his character's better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it all comes back to that in the end.
But there was a time where I was beating him a lot, and it felt so good, guys. Oh.
Yeah.
But then the sucky part is he's your training partner, so then he gets better, and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Every time you beat someone, you're just improving them.
Yeah, so you're just, improving each other one by one. And I'm glad we had all those, we call them couch matchups. But there's nothing else like it. Like I don't think I've ever been as salty as when it comes to a couch matchup. So those are, I still don't know, I guess, how to deal with those. I just have to like shake his hand and like keep away from him for at least like 15 minutes.
Yeah. So how do you harness that? Like you said, you can turn that into positive, improving your play. What's your strategies for doing that? I feel like I do the opposite. If I get salty, I get worse and worse.
Well, I think that's, a lot of people get that way. But at least what worked for me is when I get salty, what I have to do is I have to like blow off the steam elsewhere. So like right before a match, maybe I'll jump, or what I did like before, to like kind of get me focused and in the game is like the old Japanese way of like smashing your hands together against your face. So like kind of doing the Honda, like I'm gonna throw salt.
Yeah, do it in sync with the character.
Mm-hmm. So like also when you smash your hands together really hard, you feel the pain through your hands. So like you can focus then on something else besides your anger that way.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So a little thing, or like I know this sounds weird, but like I try to keep my hair also in a ponytail. So then I also pull my hair, again, kind of like a pain trigger thing. So it's like, to
bring you back to like reality in a way.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to like kind of stopping your worst train of thought and focusing back on like that pain and kind of hopefully getting you focused in on that match. And then the simplest thing I'd like to tell people too, that people forget a lot, especially in high pressure situations, is, if you're doing a 2 out of 3 set, just breathe, just wait.
Yeah.
Don't even touch the start button and think about what happened in that match. You know, ST is so fast, so you have to think about like what happened to you and what you didn't do to adapt to that player. So just wait. You know, don't press that start button. You know, just wait. Like
Back to character select.
Exactly. So take a couple minutes and just wait and think about that match and think about what you could do better on the next match and apply it. So little tricks and tips like that really help. And then one more trick I'd say is if whenever tournaments come back is I know this is silly, but always go to the bathroom before your match because once again, splashing water on your face, even if you don't have to go to the restroom and use it, but just like splashing water on your face, you know, kind of focusing on yourself in the mirror, like giving yourself words of confidence. I know it sounds silly and
giving your own space in a way, like away from everybody else, just kind of your own mental space.
Exactly.
Sounds like a Honda ritual.
Yeah.
Well, at least in tournaments I went to, there's sadly not a lot of females in tournaments, so you have a lot of space in the bathroom to do that.
Yeah, I can see that.
But here's hoping in the future I don't have the space to do that, and more females join. Yay! And it's just more people join in general. That'd be really cool.
Reno MD was going to ask, how do you approach fighting in Honda mirrors? But you've already answered that earlier.
Oh, Reno! Fun story. He and this is the Reno MG who won Evo, correct?
Yes. 2018, wasn't it? Or something like that.
So funny story is that I had closed, so I was TO in Evo, and I had closed the registration, and he emails me out of nowhere going, "I'm so sorry I missed it. Can you get me in for the pre-registration?" Wow, and I was like, "Fine, since you did such a nicely worded email and you were actually on it, you know, only by off a couple hours, fine." And I regret that to this day.
Then he goes and wins it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? And El Treble makes fun of me all the time because I could have beaten him if I had not missed my, you know, standing fierce button. It was like the $900 mistake.
Yeah.
So, but no, Reno and B is a cool cat. I'm glad he asked a question.
Yeah, he's a regular listener to the podcast. Smithy, who's obviously an Australian, he just said, I'd just like to say thanks to her. She appeared in a series of Super Turbo tutorials with El Trouble, and they helped me learn the game.
We were such babies back then. We look at that now and go, "Oh, these babies, you know nothing." I'm glad. I'm glad the tutorials helped a lot of people. I was a beginner at that time, and you see it even in the Honda one. Like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm Jon Snow. I literally knew nothing at that stage. So it's cool to see the progress, and I hope you guys can, you know, everyone who watches it can see that, like, everyone starts at the beginning. You know, everyone was a beginner at one point.
Yeah, well, you mentioned cross counter before, but I think that's the real show that people want to see.
Yeah, you and Eugene, Super Turbo cross counter, that'd be crazy. I would watch that.
Well, or more tutorials as well. You know, that'd be great.
I'm hoping, since I know we were talking earlier before this all started of like how I'm streaming. So I'm hoping, since I got the stream layout mostly done and I have, you know, I have a way to record, I'm hoping I can convince El Trouble to finish that series. Because I don't know if you guys are aware, but we're missing a couple characters.
Like
Dalsim,
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can do something like where people have to subscribe, and when you reach X amount of subscribers, you'll release the video.
Oh, I like that. That's a good idea.
Because I actually watched your one of your streams, and I remember you're trying to get people to subscribe, so that could be a good idea. I would subscribe for that. I would make a Twitch account.
Nice. Okay, thank you. That's a good idea.
Well, what I want to see is the Japanese Super Turbo players' thoughts translated into English. That'd be amazing content. Like, to see what Komodo thinks about Blanca. Like, that'd be sick.
Ooh.
We would get a Japanese translator.
That'd be cool. Yeah, there's already a couple of translators out there who are willing to do the work and who play in the Super Turbo scene. So it would literally just be down to finances and who would be up to like producing or making that. So it's possible. Definitely possible.
Carb Uncle has a question. His question is, I'd like to know what matchups she thinks old Honda is better than new Honda and vice versa.
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I've actually been thinking about switching to old Honda just for the old Saget matchup.
Okay, yeah. Old
Because
Saget.
yeah, this he's a problem.
Yeah.
Just because I saw Shogatsu do so well against Ultra Combo at Tournament of Legends 3, and it made me go,
What's
you know,
the
you'll
difference with old Honda in that match?
so like most old characters, he hits harder, so he does more damage.
Yeah.
You know, when you tick throw them, they take the whole damage as well. So that's one of their negatives. And the normals for old Honda is that his light, medium, and heavy kick all look the same.
Yeah, okay.
So you could trick people with that. And what's crazy about old Honda's like, and they have a couple of differences too, like his standing fierce punch, I want to say like is more. Oh, Treble's gonna probably tell me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. But is it like comes out better or it goes?
That
Ooh,
chop,
I'm not.
right? That kind of anti-air type chop.
Yeah, it's much more consistent than new Hondas for sure.
Okay.
And the other crazy thing is his hands. They don't move him forward like new Honda.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you can do crazy anti-Shoto matchups. Again, just watch anything Shogatsu does with, you know, hands and then, you know, some kicks or hands and some normals. And then the other crazy thing that we were playing around with the other day is that old Honda's medium headbutt looks like it's a light headbutt, but it goes full screen. So
Wow. Okay,
it's
that's interesting.
big old sumo wrestler who's going really slow across the screen, but it keeps going, and you think he's gonna stop, and then you punish, and then he doesn't.
Yeah. So it's kind of getting people that aren't familiar with old Honda, I guess, as well. Like if you're really used to the new Honda mechanics.
Exactly. I want to say like last year we had some ST parties. And Silent Scope was playing Old Honda against El Treble, and the salt level was amazing with that medium punch headbutt.
Yeah. Okay.
So, they're very, very different, and it may not seem like these, you know, small sets of move lists will do a big difference in the meta, but it really does.
Yeah.
And I think with old Saget, because you'll never get really close to him to do an Ochio, why go new Honda, you know, because it's so hard to get through that fireball mess, even with hands that move you forward, because he just has so many, you know, anti-Honda options.
Yeah.
So I definitely say going old Honda with old Saget. And then I'm going to be one of those weird Honda players and say no other matchup, just because Matsun kind of pretty much said this to me. He's like, why are you, you know, I was playing a different character, and he's like, why are you not playing your main? You have to play your main at every tournament match so you learn and grow as a player. You know?
Well, that's the Japanese approach for sure. Like the one character loyalist.
Yeah. And he like, I went another character that day, and he lost like so much respect for me. And he's like, no,
Wow, interesting.
you basically, you need to play your shit. Like, play your shit or get out. And I was like, ah!
Wow. That's what, yeah.
So
We have sorry.
Oh, so sorry. Go for it.
No, I'll just finish your sentence and I'll continue.
I was just I basically do the Kurahashi trick is I only play a different character or old Honda if it's an old character I'm playing against. Because then to me in my mind they've cheated.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to then cheat also, not pick my shit.
Yeah. Okay. So.
We have 2 questions from Hadoken. He is an ST player from New York, and he is scheduled to appear on this podcast as a guest. His first question is, how do you get younger players interested in ST?
Ooh, that's a good question from Hadoken. And I love Hadoken. He's awesome. I think once you get the kids over the old graphics, so make sure you what's the component in the back of a CRT that you need that I'm having a brain fart again?
Like the component in the back of a CRT, like the tubes or something?
Yes, you need to make sure you plug in the version so it looks better first and foremost.
Yeah, okay, there's all the scan lines and like all that stuff, yeah. Does
So
that
just
matter? I feel like that fades away eventually. You know, I don't even really notice that after a while.
I think with the younger generation, just because they're such used to high fidelity stuff, you need to push the limits as
Yeah,
best
okay.
you can.
Yeah.
So making sure that's plugged in. I'm today. Wow, you can tell it's a lazy weekend because I'm not remembering
Yeah,
the
sure,
component. But so just making sure you can play it at the most high fidelity as you can. But also, like kind of what we said before, is just teach them one cool trick that gets them interested. So showing them a tick throw, showing them a special move, showing them how to do even like a super, can really get you far. And I think if you just bring enough like excitedness, they usually get into it. And I think like if you're like a parent and a kid, it's even better because you can even have like, yo, this is, our time together. This is the time to strategize. And kind of just like for me, I always see like whenever you're working with, a new player at something, just kind of like what do they like? Do they like throwing the most? Do they like spamming attacking the most? Do they like defense?
Yeah.
And making sure you kind of cater your play style to that so they get the most enjoyment out of it. And most of the time, if you like cater to those needs, they'll start to get more interested in like the more meta aspect or more of the, more of the deeper concepts in the game. And what really helped me, and even though sometimes I'm too salty to listen, is as long as they're still having a fun time, kind of like talking about the match and going, oh, look, like you got so much farther in your health lead, but then you crumbled on your defense, or you stopped, you stopped
jumping
zoning
in or that kind of stuff. Yeah.
You start doing this, and this, and look what happened to your health, or kind of like what they do with, pro matches is like take a recording if you can and go, look at how great you did at this moment, highlighting certain aspects. So those are, I think, using kind of those skill sets will help you with the younger generation. And if not, go watch Free Play Arcade and see what they do.
Yeah. Okay.
His second question is, have you ever been hit with a final?
Final, yeah.
I played Afro, so yes.
He loves charging his turnaround punches.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. It's crazy.
He has a special way with his fingers. I don't know how to articulate it, but I'm with you. It's crazy.
How much damage does that do? I don't think I've ever really seen it.
It's bananas.
Yeah, of course. It's ST. It's got to be.
Right. Helix Strong has a question. His question is, to get in, do you move differently against different Fireball characters?
Yes. The quick answer, yes. The long answer, hell yes.
He also adds he is most interested on your take on the Guile matchup.
Ooh. So I guess I should preface it as, there's different types of fireballs. You've got Ken and Ryu's fireball. Ken's fireball randomly disappears at times.
Yeah.
You've got fatter fireballs. You've got skinnier fireballs, and different speeds as well. So it does take a really long time to learn all the ways to get around the different types of fireballs. Yeah. But I would say the biggest thing is just learning to walking up and blocking is the hardest yet the best strategy you can learn for pretty much that covers all your bases on that. And what was the question again? All of a sudden I was
Guile.
like zoning.
Yeah. You want to know about the Guile match?
Yeah, tips for the Guile match.
The tips I would take from the Guile matchup is, I know this is really probably not the greatest idea, but I do it all the time, is butt slam first and see if they know about the tech of jump back fierce.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, test their understanding.
Yeah, because if they don't know that tech, you can get in no problem with your butt slams.
Yeah, okay.
But if they do know that tech, then you have to go back to the walking and blocking technique or jumping fierce, depending on the spacing. Yeah. And using your standing heavy kick to kind of keep them off balance. Using your hands to push you forward, but making sure it's at a timing where you won't get hit by another fireball or normal. So the way I do it, and I had a really cool set at XSB versus a Guile. I think we did first to 5. Was just bulldogging them to the corner, walking up and blocking until you get them in the corner, and then you have all the offensive capabilities once you get in. and then just opening them up like, like anything else. So that's kind of, so first see if they can handle the butt slam pressure, and then if not, bulldogging and walking up and blocking to the corner and trying to keep them there as best you can.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good tips.
Our last listener question is from Enkaros, and his question is, ask her what Honda does to beat Boxer and feel on the matchup flow.
Wait, we've got all kinds of people wanting tips from a pro Honda player.
That's it.
Like Boxers, it's funny that you guys mentioned Boxer because Boxer is kind of like also one of my Achilles heel matchups. Like Jimmy Bones has beaten me twice in tournament that I'm still holding on salt, and then he retired.
Yeah, that's even worse. He wins and then like, oh, see you guys, I'm out of here.
Yeah, more Jimmy Bones. Yeah.
He's but he'll be back. They
always come back eventually.
Exactly. And I don't think he's gone to Japan yet, I believe. And I think once he goes there, he'll go, oh, I should come back.
Yeah, okay.
But anyways, I get sidetracked. But the Boxer Honda matchup is almost like the mirror matchup, except Boxer is better. So basically, Boxer's headbutt can beat most of my special moves.
Yep.
So you can watch, if you want any tips, you can watch me versus Jimmy Bones, because he plays a really good Honda up in Canada all the time, and that's how he's gotten so good at the match. And basically, his strategy is to be defensive and just open me up if I'm trying to get in too much, because at the end of the day, he has all those options. And like I said, his headbutt beats most of my special attacks. So there's really very few things I can do to trick Boxer to beat him. Because he overall in the neutral game, he has better neutral. He also has, like I said, better specials, and then he's a little bit faster too. So tough one. So being defensive, like my Honda, and knowing, like I said, that knowing your options in what situations.
Yep.
I got a question as well, actually. Maybe just kind of last couple of questions before we finish up.
That's all right. We can go into bonus footage as well. So we have about 20 minutes of questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah. I want to hear about New Legacy. So there's this Brom hack that Born to SPD put out, and it seems like it's kind of getting a bit of traction. So there's been some tournaments. There's quite a bit of footage going off on YouTube. What are your thoughts on that? Like, have you played it? Do you enjoy it?
I've played it a little bit with El Treble and some of our friends online. I'm all for it just because it takes like a new, fresh look at ST. You know, and if you've been playing for so many years and you just want to try something different, I think it's a great opportunity. And I know there's people who are like, oh, we didn't like HDR, we didn't like all this stuff before, but I'm all like, no. Look at it this way. These are great openings for new people to come in, like a new set of new types of players to come in and kind of like refresh or change up the ST scene. You wouldn't have Snake Eyes without HDR. So I'm all for like, what will New Legacy bring in now? So I'm like, yes.
yeah, exactly.
So
is Honda better or worse in that game? I don't know much about his changes. I feel like everyone loves New Legacy if their character got stronger, and everyone hates it if their character got weaker.
This is where I'm gonna like tag team in El Treble. Did Honda change a lot in Legacy? Because I wasn't playing Honda. That's
look who it is. Guest appearance.
Special guest appearance.
I think his hands got a little.
Talk to the mic.
I think his hands got slightly nerfed. Chip and priority. Yep. And I think his super got changed a little bit so that it'll hit more consistently, but still punishable on block.
Does it go through fireballs?
Like too much New Legacies, I haven't like fully thoroughly tested it. So
they are asking. Sorry, I don't have him on headset. If his headbutt goes through fireball.
No.
Oh, okay. That's
no, but I think that's a good thing. That's a weird thing. I don't think
you don't like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna
change.
Yeah, that's exactly what a Delson player would say.
Good one. Yeah, no, I was playing Blanca because I heard he had like an overhead.
Yeah,
so that was really fun.
And his Blanca balls are safe and he's super safe, and it's happy days.
Yeah, no, I know whenever that the ST trick of Ochio, the tick throw Ochio setup is kind of gone, I pretty much kind of walk away from Honda.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still there. No,
Oh, it's still there?
Yeah, they brought it back.
Oh, they brought it back on the second, on the new patch? Oh, yeah, not on the first patch. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for that interlude. But yeah, no, I like playing other characters and expanding my repertoire and kind of like, building your skill sets in different arenas, just because you'll never know when you need them.
And it all translates back to your main, I find, as well. Like if you play a lot of another character, you suddenly improve in some facet of your main character.
Yeah, it took me a while to finally understand that for sure. But yeah, definitely.
Yep. We'll just have to move it along a bit. You went to the European event XSB 2019. Stylistically, do they play any differently to the North American players?
Yes. Short answer, yes.
Europeans.
Long answer, yeah. The Dalsums are so much more offensive. It's so weird.
Really?
I've
Wow.
never
Yeah.
like the only offensive Dalsum player I could correlate it to is Afrocole. Like he's like the only offensive Dalsum player we have here. Other than that, like I haven't seen so many of them until I went to XSB. So that was a treat. I was like, what is this?
Yep.
I come from the land of El Trouble just, being the defensive mofo that he is.
So you would have thought like you were well prepared for it, but it was different.
Yeah, completely different. It was a treat. I also really liked kind of it. What I brought back from that experience the most is, me and El Trouble were talking about like how we think how would North America stack up against Europe, or at least that XSV tournament, and we were like, we think the average player in Europe is actually stronger than the average player in America, but like in a top 5 versus top 5, we think America would squeak out. But just kind of like barely at the end.
I see.
But
was that true? Did that end up happening?
Well, we weren't able to test that theory because we haven't had a top 5 Europe versus top 5 USA. So hopefully when tournaments get back to rolling, maybe we can test that out in the future, and we'll see if I'm correct or I'm full of it.
And you can have a rematch with that Guile player that you versed.
That was the salt on that one. Oh.
At Body Count Fighting 2, you faced Luthier God. Was it just for fun, or was there a legitimate beef there?
I didn't have a beef with him until I learned about all the heinous stuff he had done. A friend turned me, which probably wasn't a good idea.
Is this before you played him or after you played him?
This was, so I had done what happened was I was invited, and then I did an interview for a podcast on one of my friend's shows. And then he basically and I was just like, I'm going to fight him and hopefully I'll win. I think it's stupid that, he said these things. But I've always heard people say that, and my friend goes, no, it's much more worse than you think. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, watch these videos. And sure enough, he had done a lot more stuff. And I was like, this doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
And actually, yeah. And he, you're there shooting all day. It's a whole set. That was a really cool experience, even though it didn't turn out that well. Spoiler alert. I lost really bad. Yeah. But it was a really cool experience because I'd never
Come see me in ST. That's what you should have told him. Come see me in ST.
Yeah. Well, that's a story for a different time. I don't know if he'll be let back in the FGC, but
yeah. Okay.
He was adamant in person that real life is different from online, and I was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So he has a very different set of reality.
Yeah. So he's different in person to online, you reckon?
Yeah. And so I know we were talking about anger management issues earlier, and just kind of like getting your headspace out of the game, especially if you're salty. And I between the camera crew and a new experience, and then kind of getting too revved up from that, the match got away from me. So
yeah, okay.
It's a lesson you have to learn from it. I definitely learned that you have to like kind of let those emotions go and don't let it bother you, because you're always going to have people saying, oh, just because you're a girl, you can't do this, this, and that. And I've always been like, what?
Yeah.
Just because, I have this body part doesn't make my defense weaker. Like,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, so I guess I answered that question is,
Yep.
I just...
After the match, you said something to him. Do you remember what you said? Like, it wasn't clear.
I honestly don't remember, just because I was so freaked out from all of those cameras. Like, I'm an extrovert, and I've had no problem being... not too much of a problem, like being on stage or like talking to brand new people, getting them into fighting games. But when it comes to a camera, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it creates a different atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, well, it was quite elaborate, the atmosphere. There was literally like a boxing ring you had to go into.
Yeah, that's not the normal Street Fighter kind of experience.
So moving it along, look, you've created a Twitch channel. What motivated you to start one?
The pandemic.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
So basically, I was like, what day is it? This is, we're here in August 2020, and we're, at least here in America, we're still quarantined, at least in California. So we don't really go out much, and so it's really hard to have Street Fighter events. So we've kind of had to turn to being an online warrior. So I've always thought about going on Twitch, but really didn't have the push until now.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a good thing though, because I've always said I wanted to do it, and I always held myself back because I was always worried about certain things. For example, I want to say when I got started in 2011, and I would pop on people's streams, or I'd pop on Wednesday Night Fights, the chat was much more aggressive and worse than they are now, for sure.
Okay.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So I, of course I'm not going to lean towards going back into that environment.
Yeah.
But so far it's been a pleasurable experience. I've had,
Awesome.
I think I got my first bot the other day. I banned him. But so far it's been fantastic. So I'm glad we went and tried this new path, because it's also showed me a different sort of skill sets I've had to acquire, and I've learned new things. So even though I was scared of it, I'm glad I pushed to do it, even though I kind of have to get my ST practice in.
I just have one more question. When El Trouble was on the podcast, we asked him for his perspective of Combo Breaker 2018. I'm interested in yours. Did you know he was going to propose, and why did you pick this event in particular?
So, I did not know he was going to propose, but I knew I was going to propose 2 months out. So at the time he was working a lot and couldn't make Wednesday Night Fights, so I even brought the ring to Wednesday Night Fights and showed everyone.
Wow.
I was like, you guys have to keep this a secret, but you have to be ready for this.
Yeah, okay.
So I knew 2 months out I was going to do it at Combo Breaker. It was a hard time keeping that secret. But yeah, I had no clue he was going to reversal me, like most matchups. With the ring. So that was a really special moment. And I got really choked up when I did that speech. I didn't realize how emotional it would all be. So I found out later though that his mom, because we went as a family to Chicago, his mom tried to get him to propose to me at this swanky restaurant at one of the tallest towers, and I was like, no, I'm so glad you said no to her. No.
Wow, that's beautiful. Still grassroots. Propose at a Street Fighter tournament rather than a restaurant.
I'm so glad he said no. No, we're surrounded by strangers. You're in this very weird bar area. No. You got to be surrounded by your Street Fighter family and whatnot. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad he waited for me to propose instead, and then reversal.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks for coming on. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Awesome, man.
All right, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the Alpha Lives podcast. But for now, signing off.